So the slave patroller guys just stopped every black person. Over time, those slave patrols eventually evolved into militias, and during the Revolutionary War, those militias became the American army. And when the war ended, America had a bunch of roving bands of men who had guns, so they put those men in charge of putting down slave rebellions. And eventually, they put them in charge of enforcing all the laws, or as they called it back then, policing. If you're still taking notes, I bet your trapper keeper just exploded. Now, when the southern states decided they'd rather own human beings than be part of America, these militias became the Confederate Army. And after the Civil War, the militias came back home with nothing to do. So a few of them started a fun fraternity called the Circle of Brothers. Now, you've probably never heard of the Circle of Brothers fraternity because they always lost at the homecoming step shows. Plus, they used their Greek name, Kuklos, meaning circle, and of course, clan, meaning family. You call them the Ku Klux Klan. That's who enforced racial terrorism during Reconstruction. That's who used violence to enforce Jim Crow laws. That's who carried out the lynchings during the Red Summer of 1919. Google it. That's who still stops and frisks black people at 10 times the rate of white people. That's who still shoots and kills unarmed black citizens at 3.5 times the rate of whites. Because for most of America's history, there's been no difference between the Klan, the police, and plain old racists. So why don't we all know this? Because while Southern men were busy forming the KKK, Southern women were busy forming a fun club called the United Daughters of the Confederacy. The United Daughters joined school boards and formed lobbying groups to make textbooks more favorable to Confederates. And they got so powerful that textbook publishers had to get their approval before school boards agreed to purchase social studies books, ensuring that their version of history is the one that got taught in schools. It is impossible to understand politics, the black community's relationship with the police, or why we even need to say Black Lives Matter if we don't learn the history of this country. So yes, let's have a White History Month. Let's have 12 of them. Otherwise, we'll never learn information that's crucial to understanding our own country, like the fact that once upon a time, there were slave patrols who became militias, who became Revolutionary Army, who became the police, who became the Confederate Army, who became the KKK. Just because they don't teach that in schools doesn't mean you can't learn it. But you're gonna need a lot more trapper